Case 1. Glenn Schwarzkopf was once known as a charming island bartender in New York, the kind of man who could strike up a conversation with anyone. But in 2014, his name made headlines for a very different reason. Investigators discovered that the man who once poured drinks for regular customers had been quietly stealing from an elderly client in a complex financial scam worth more than $1 million. His double life, part bartender, part self-styled investment advisor, ended in a courtroom instead of a bar room. According to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Schwarzkopf pleaded guilty on March 4, 2014, to grand larceny in the first degree, criminal tax fraud in the third degree, and offering a false instrument for filing. Prosecutors said he forged documents, falsified tax filings, and siphoned funds from his clients' accounts for personal use. The fraud spanned several years, during which Schwarzkopf convinced his victim to trust him with large sums of money. When the deception came to light, the losses totaled more than $1 million, a betrayal that left his client's finances devastated. In May 2014, a New York State Supreme Court judge sentenced him to 2 1/3 to 7 years in state prison for grand larceny, plus 1 to 3 years each for the tax fraud and forgery charges. Case 2. Edgar Fernando Neri, who friends called Colocho, worked as a bartender in Tifton, Georgia. Most people who came to his bar thought he was just serving drinks and talking to customers. But according to the U.S. Department of Justice, he was secretly helping move drugs from Los Angeles to South Georgia. In August 2021, local police and federal agents started looking into strange packages and suspicious activity in Tift County. A trusted source told investigators that a bartender known as Colocho was selling meth and small blue pills containing fentanyl. These were dangerous drugs that could easily take lives. The DEA, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service worked together to find out where the drugs were coming from. Their investigation led them to several packages sent from Los Angeles. When agents opened them, they found about 3 pounds of meth and almost 2,000 fentanyl pills. The evidence was clear, and the agents soon arrested Neri on October 19, 2021. When questioned, he admitted he had helped distribute 1.29 kilograms of meth and nearly 2,000 fentanyl pills weighing more than 200 grams. He also told agents that he had talked about buying body armor and guns from someone in California to protect his drug business. In June 2022, Neri pleaded guilty in federal court in Albany, Georgia. The judge listened to all the facts and made his decision. On April 26, 2023, U.S. Senior District Judge Hugh Lawson sentenced Neri to 87 months in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release once he gets out. Case 3. Carly F. Moy worked as a bartender at Blue Sunday Bar and Grill in Bowie, Maryland. On the night of January 29, 2017, he walked into the restaurant's manager's office and opened fire on his coworkers, a shocking act that left 3 people dead and a community searching for answers. The victims were identified as Sherwood Morgan, 46, Jin Chen, 27, and Shui Shinzhou, 28. 2 died at the scene, and the third later died at a hospital. Police later said Moy fled into nearby woods, where he attempted to take his own life before being arrested. Investigators discovered that the motive behind the murders was a dispute over about $2,100 in pay. Moy believed he was owed money from the restaurant, and after arguing with management, he returned armed with a handgun. According to court records, he shot his co-workers inside the manager's office and then ran from the scene. The killings stunned Bowie, a quiet suburb outside Washington, D.C., where violent workplace shootings were rare. In September 2018, Moy pleaded guilty in Prince George's County Circuit Court to 3 counts of first-degree murder and several weapons charges. On the 19th of November 2018, a judge sentenced him to 3 consecutive life terms in prison, 1 for each victim. Case 4. Alex Batista was a 30-year-old Portuguese barman who worked at the Cricketers Inn in Meopham, Kent. He was known around town for serving drinks and chatting with regular customers. But on Bonfire Night in 2022, a night when people gathered to watch fireworks and celebrate, everything went terribly wrong. That evening, Batista let anger and jealousy take over him, and what he did next shocked everyone in the community. Investigators later said that Batista believed his boss, David Brown, who owned the pub, was having an affair with his wife. Instead of talking things through, Batista chose violence. Late that night, he met Brown outside the pub. Overcome with rage, he grabbed 2 knives and a garden spade and began attacking his employer. Witnesses nearby heard loud shouting and rushed to help. They found Brown on the ground, badly hurt and covered in blood. Paramedics arrived quickly and managed to save his life, though he was left with serious head and body injuries. After the attack, Batista ran away, hoping to escape, but the police launched a search and found him near Maidstone only a few hours later. When the case went to court, prosecutors said the attack was frenzied and planned. The jury at Maidstone Crown Court listened to all the evidence and found him guilty of attempted murder on May 15, 2023. The judge said Batista's actions came from consuming jealousy and showed no care for life. The next day, May 16, 2023, Batista was sentenced to 27 years in prison for his violent crime. Before we explore the next case, if you have found this video interesting so far, please consider supporting my channel by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. I'd really appreciate your support. Thank you. Case 5. Martin Stevens, once a bartender in the coastal suburb of Toradji, near Wollongong, New South Wales. He was known among friends as friendly and hardworking, but in 2005, his name became linked to one of Australia's most infamous drug trafficking cases, the Bali 9. What began as a plan to smuggle heroin from Indonesia to Australia turned into an international scandal that shocked both nations and changed 9 young lives forever. On April 17, 2005, Stevens arrived at Ngurah Rai International Airport in Denpasar, Bali, preparing to board a flight to Sydney. Hidden under his shirt and taped tightly to his chest were 3.3 kilograms of heroin. Acting on intelligence, Indonesian police stopped and searched him before the flight. The drugs were immediately discovered, and Stevens was arrested on the spot. He was one of 9 Australians caught that same day in a coordinated operation that exposed a well-organized trafficking ring led by Andrew Chan and Miran Sukumaran. After months of hearings, Stevens was convicted of drug trafficking by the Denpasar District Court on February 14, 2006, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Later, his sentence was temporarily reduced to 20 years, though Indonesian courts later reinstated the life term after further appeals. Unlike Chan and Sukumaran, who were executed in 2015, Stevens avoided the death penalty and remains imprisoned in Indonesia. Case 6. Justina Gorska worked as the manager of the Dion Bar in London's busy St. Paul's district. The bar was known for its stylish atmosphere and classy drinks, often attracting office workers and tourists looking to unwind. As the manager, Gorska was in charge of running the bar, supervising staff, and making sure customers were well served. But in 2014, what seemed like a normal London cocktail spot turned out to be at the center of a serious crime. Between June and August 2014, investigators later found that Gorska had been secretly handing out cocaine to customers who ordered a certain drink from the menu. While serving cocktails behind the counter, she would quietly include a small packet of the illegal drug, turning the bar into part of an underground drug trade. For months, this went unnoticed until police received reports about suspicious behavior inside the bar. Undercover officers were sent to investigate. They visited the Dion Bar, ordered the special drink, and saw exactly what was happening. Each time, the officers were given both a cocktail and a 50-pound packet of cocaine. Court documents and reports from Vice and the drinks business confirmed the findings. When Gorska was finally arrested, she admitted that she had given out the drugs but claimed she was pressured and that the cocaine came from a friend. However, prosecutors presented solid evidence proving she had supplied cocaine multiple times while working behind the bar. In October 2017, after pleading guilty, she was sentenced to 28 months in prison for her role in distributing drugs from within the business she managed. Case 7. Tirangamaria Ngaramu worked as a bartender in London during the early 1990s. Most people knew her as a quiet woman serving drinks at local pubs, but few could imagine the terrible crime she would later commit. In May 1992, she became involved in one of Britain's most shocking murder-for-hire cases, a planned killing that took place inside the Royal Free Hospital in North London. Investigators said Ngaramu had been hired by 2 of the victim's co-workers to carry out a murder. The target was Graham Woodhatch, a 33-year-old hospital porter. On the day of the attack, Ngaramu went to the hospital and found Woodhatch during his shift. Without warning, she shot him 4 times at close range, ending his life instantly. The act stunned hospital staff and left investigators desperate to understand who could have done such a thing. Police began gathering evidence right away. Witness statements and ballistics tests helped them trace the weapon back to people connected to Ngarimu. Step by step, the clues led officers to her. Prosecutors later said she had agreed to kill Woodhatch for £7,000, but received only around £1,500 before her arrest. During her trial, she showed little emotion, which surprised everyone in court. In 1996, Ngarimu was sentenced to life in prison for murder. She spent more than 10 years in a British prison before being deported to New Zealand in 2005. Years later, researchers noted that she was the only known female contract killer in modern British criminal history. Please remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate your support in helping my channel grow. Thank you. Case 8. Jose Rigoberto Mejia Cubillas was a bartender in Madison, Mississippi. On the night of January 30th, 2025, a woman was sitting at the restaurant bar where he worked when something terrible happened. She later woke up on the floor of the bar, confused and hurt. Security video later showed that Mejia Cubillas had taken advantage of her while she was unconscious and unable to defend herself. When police arrived, they reviewed the camera footage and arrested Mejia Cubillas that same night. Investigators confirmed the victim was not awake or able to consent. What was supposed to be a safe, friendly place to relax became the scene of a violent crime. The community was shocked, and police quickly gathered evidence to build the case against him. A Madison County court charged Mejia Cubillas with sexual battery of a physically helpless person. On April 28, 2025, he was sentenced to 25 years in state prison. The judge said there would be no parole or early release. Mejia Cubillas, who was 37 years old at the time, also faced a separate federal case because he was living in the U.S. illegally after being deported in 2010. Later, on August 6, 2025, the U.S. Department of Justice announced another punishment: 24 months in federal prison for unlawful reentry. That sentence will run after his 25-year state term, meaning he must serve both in full. Case 9. Lawrence Seth Lebo worked as a bartender at the Stanford Grill restaurant in Columbia, Maryland. For months, customers and coworkers had no idea that something strange was happening at the bar's register. Between December 2014 and June 2015, Lebo quietly stole more than $54,000 from his workplace, not by taking from the till, but through a sneaky gift card trick that went unnoticed for nearly 30 weeks. Investigators later discovered that Lebo had used 2 gift cards he kept for himself. When customers paid their bills, he would process part of their payments through those cards and keep the cash instead. The pattern repeated again and again, almost 900 theft transactions in total. The losses were eventually noticed by management when routine audits showed large, unexplained gaps in sales records. Once confronted, Lebo admitted to the scheme and said he had developed a gambling problem that drove his actions. On the 14th of July, 2016, a judge sentenced Lawrence Seth Lebo, then 43 years old, to 5 years in jail with all but 15 days suspended. He was ordered to repay the stolen money and attend Gamblers Anonymous meetings twice a week. Case 10. Christopher Brewer and Olivia Lester both worked as bartenders in the city of Mobile, Alabama. They were both young and spent their nights serving drinks to customers at a local bar. For them, it was just another job mixing drinks, chatting with regulars, and closing up late at night. But in 2019, one night changed everything. That evening, they sold alcohol to a 19-year-old customer without checking his ID. It seemed harmless at first, but what followed would become a heartbreaking tragedy that neither of them could forget. After leaving the bar, the underage customer got into his car and started driving. Not long after, he crashed and one of his passengers lost their life in the wreck. When police began their investigation, they discovered that the young man had been drinking at the bar where Brewer and Lester worked. The drinks he was served should never have been sold to him. The legal drinking age in Alabama is 21. When the case went to court, both bartenders faced serious consequences. In February 2019, they were found guilty of selling alcohol to a minor, which is against Alabama law. The judge made it clear that even small mistakes can have serious outcomes when alcohol is involved. Both Brewer and Lester were each sentenced to 6 months suspended, placed on 1 year of informal probation, and ordered to pay a $200 fine plus court costs. Case 11. Natalia Ortiz was once a bartender at El Muelle Seafood Bar in Houston, Texas. Her job was to serve food and drinks to customers who came to relax and enjoy themselves. On the night of May 14, 2016, one of her customers was 26-year-old Aiden Palacios. Witnesses later said he had been drinking heavily and was clearly drunk, but Ortiz kept serving him alcohol. Investigators later found that by the end of the night, Palacios had consumed around 11 beers while sitting at the bar. After leaving the bar, Palacios got into his car, even though he was intoxicated. A few hours later, police tried to stop him, but he sped away, starting a dangerous chase through Houston. The chase ended in tragedy when his car crashed into another vehicle, killing 18-year-old Jocelyn Valero, a high school senior who was on her way home from prom. Her death shocked the entire community. After the crash, the Houston Police Department and the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission (TABC) began investigating the bar. They reviewed video footage and confirmed that Ortiz had kept serving Palacios even when he was obviously drunk, which violated Texas law. Bartenders in Texas are legally required to stop serving alcohol once a person shows signs of intoxication. In May 2018, 2 years after the crash, Ortiz was arrested and charged with 2 crimes: a misdemeanor for serving alcohol to an intoxicated person and a felony for using another person's social security number on job documents. She pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 15 months in federal prison for the document charge. Meanwhile, Aiden Palacios was sentenced to 32 years in prison for killing Jocelyn Valero in the crash. Case 12. James Emilio worked as a bartender in Hollywood, Florida. But in 2017, his name hit headlines for all the wrong reasons. A Broward County jury found him guilty of sexually assaulting a woman in the parking garage of the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. What began as an ordinary night ended with a conviction that would send him to prison for 10 years. The incident took place in August 2015 inside the casino's parking structure. Prosecutors said the woman was incapacitated when Emilio attacked her. Surveillance cameras captured the assault, providing the crucial evidence that led investigators to him. When detectives reviewed the footage, the video left little room for doubt. During the trial, jurors watched the clip that prosecutors said told the entire story. The case went before a Broward County jury in August 2017. After only a few hours of deliberation, jurors returned with a guilty verdict for sexual battery. Emilio, who had worked for years in the local nightlife scene, was taken into custody immediately after the verdict was read. His defense claimed the act was consensual, but the jury rejected that argument based on the video and physical evidence. Then, on the 29th of September, 2017, Judge Dennis Bailey sentenced James Emilio to 10 years in state prison, followed by 10 years of probation. Case 13. Brandon Delaquadre seemed like an ordinary bartender and bouncer working in the busy nightlife of Walnut Creek, California. But in 2023, police say they uncovered a disturbing pattern that turned that nightlife setting into the focus of a major criminal case. In July 2023, Walnut Creek police arrested 35-year-old Brandon Delaquadre after several women came forward accusing him of sexual assault. Detectives said some of the women met him while he was working at local bars in the East Bay. According to prosecutors, Delaquadre used his job and social gatherings to approach women, later assaulting them when they were unconscious or unable to defend themselves. Investigators traced incidents dating back to 2018, with assaults reported in Walnut Creek, Lafayette, and San Ramon. Contra Costa County prosecutors charged Delaquadre with multiple felonies, including forcible rape, rape of an unconscious person, and forcible sodomy. Police said they found evidence linking him to at least 7 victims. Detectives also believe there may be other victims who have not yet come forward. Authorities publicly asked anyone with information to contact Walnut Creek Police to help build the case. As of late 2024, Delaquadre remained in custody while the case moved through the courts. He has not been sentenced, and no plea has been entered publicly. Case 14. Kevin Suhoza was known as a bartender in Akron, Ohio. Many people came to his bar after work to relax, talk with friends, and enjoy a drink. To most of his customers, Souza looked like a friendly man who listened to stories and served drinks with a smile. But in 2023, everything changed when the truth about his actions came out. What investigators discovered shocked everyone who had once trusted him. According to prosecutors, Souza committed serious crimes while on the job, times when people expected safety, not harm. Court documents showed that he was charged with 3 counts of sexual battery, which are very serious offenses under Ohio law. The Summit County Prosecutor's Office explained that Souza had taken advantage of customers who had been drinking and were too impaired to defend themselves. Investigators worked carefully to gather evidence, interview witnesses, and confirm what had happened. On June 7, 2023, Souza appeared before a judge in the Summit County Common Pleas Court. He pleaded guilty to all 3 counts of sexual battery. His case was part of the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative, a program that helps review and reopen sexual assault cases that might not have been handled properly in the past. Later that summer, on August 1, 2023, the judge announced Souza's punishment. He was sentenced to 9 years and 6 months in prison for his crimes. In addition, he was ordered to register as a Tier 3 sex offender, the most serious level in Ohio, which means he must report where he lives to police for the rest of his life. Case 15. James Hooks Jr. was a well-known bartender in Elmira, New York. Regular customers at Ramsey's Place recognized him for his calm attitude and quick service. But in 2016, his familiar face appeared somewhere no one expected: a courtroom. Investigators said Hooks had been taking workers' compensation payments while still tending bar on weekends. What looked like an ordinary job turned into a fraud case that revealed how small-town trust can be quietly broken. According to the New York State Inspector General, Hooks was indicted in April 2016 for grand larceny and fraudulent practices. He claimed he was too hurt to work after an injury, yet continued earning money at the bar. Between 2013 and 2015, he collected nearly $24,600 in benefits he wasn't entitled to. Detectives built their case using payroll records, witness statements, and surveillance showing him behind the counter. When the evidence came together, Hooks admitted the truth in July 2016, pleading guilty in Chemung County Court. Court filings show that Hooks admitted to taking $21,326 in improper payments. As part of his sentence, he was ordered to repay the full amount and placed on probation. Case 16. Jacob Banas was once a well-known bartender and restaurant owner in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. His place, the August Weber House, was a popular local spot for food, music, and late-night drinks. But behind that normal setting, investigators said something dangerous was happening. In April 2014, a woman went to Banas's restaurant for drinks. After taking a shot that he prepared, she became dizzy, lost her memory of the evening, and woke up the next morning feeling ill and disoriented. She went to the police, saying she believed her drink had been tampered with. For years, the case sat quietly until more women came forward. By 2020, at least 7 women testified they experienced similar blackouts or sickness after drinking at Banas's establishment. Detectives reopened the case and found enough evidence to bring him to trial. On February 26, 2020, a jury found Jacob Banas guilty of administering a stupefying drug, a felony under Wisconsin law. The charge stemmed from a single confirmed incident but included testimony from several women who said they, too, had been affected. Prosecutors told the court that Banas used his access as a bartender to exploit customers' trust, turning a place meant for relaxation into a site of danger. After the verdict, the judge ordered Banas taken into custody while awaiting sentencing. On the 13th of March, 2020, Banas was sentenced to 3 years in prison and 5 years of extended supervision. In 2023, the Wisconsin Court of Appeals reviewed the case and upheld the conviction, ruling that the evidence and witness testimony were properly handled. Case 17. Gareth Lambert was the landlord of the Crown and Liver pub in Ewloe, Flintshire, Wales. Many people in the community knew him as the man who ran the local pub, a place where friends met to talk, laugh, and enjoy a drink together. But in early 2022, police discovered that terrible things had happened inside the flat above that very same pub. What seemed like a normal workplace had turned into the scene of serious crimes that shocked everyone who knew him. The crimes took place between January and February 2022. Two women, aged 25 and 38, found the courage to come forward and tell police what had happened. Officers from North Wales Police listened carefully to their statements, collected evidence, and interviewed witnesses who could help them understand the events. Bit by bit, they built a strong case showing that Lambert had used his position of trust to commit awful acts. When the case went to trial at Caernarfon Crown Court, the victims bravely shared their stories in front of the judge and jury. The court heard how Lambert had taken advantage of people who trusted him, and the evidence was overwhelming. Prosecutors explained that his actions had caused great harm, both to the victims and to the community that once looked up to him. On April 19, 2024, the judge announced Lambert's sentence. He was 31 years old at the time. The court ordered him to serve 18 years in prison, followed by 6 more years of extended supervision after his release, a long sentence meant to protect the public and prevent him from ever hurting anyone again. Case 18. Dennis Edison worked as a bartender in Long Beach, New York. He was known by many people who visited the area, especially tourists looking for a friendly face and a good drink. On November 24, 2015, 2 young women visiting from Germany stayed in his apartment after finding him through a hosting website. They expected a safe and simple place to spend the night, but what happened instead was deeply wrong. According to reports later shared by the Nassau County District Attorney's Office, one of the women began to feel strange after drinking cocktails that Edison had mixed for her. She told investigators she started feeling dizzy and soon lost control of her body. The next thing she remembered was waking up in his bed, confused and terrified, with no memory of how she got there or what had taken place. Police quickly launched an investigation. Forensic experts collected DNA evidence, and the results confirmed that Edison had taken advantage of the woman while she was unconscious. Prosecutors said he had mixed the drinks on purpose to make her unable to fight back. The evidence was strong, and he was charged with first-degree rape and first-degree sexual abuse, 2 serious and violent crimes under New York law. During his trial, the court heard that the victim had been physically helpless at the time of the assault. The details shocked the community. On October 14, 2016, a Nassau County judge sentenced Dennis Edison, who was 32 years old, to 10 years in state prison. After his release, he will remain under supervision for 20 years to ensure he cannot harm anyone again. Case 19. David Minto was a 23-year-old hotel barman in Blackpool. In 2013, he was sentenced to life in prison for one of the most disturbing murders the seaside town had ever seen. His victim was Sasha Marsden, a 16-year-old college student who thought she was going for a job interview but instead walked into a deadly trap. On 31 January 2013, Sasha traveled to the Grafton House Hotel on Lytham Road in Blackpool. Minto had contacted her, pretending to offer her a cleaning job. When she arrived, he led her inside. Within minutes, he attacked her, stabbing her more than 50 times before wrapping her body in carpet and setting it on fire in an alleyway behind the hotel. Passers-by later spotted the flames and called emergency services, leading to the horrifying discovery. Police found CCTV footage and forensic evidence linking Minto directly to the crime scene. A knife and bloodstains inside the hotel matched Sasha's DNA. During his trial at Preston Crown Court, prosecutors described the murder as vicious and premeditated. Minto denied all charges, but on 26 July 2013, the jury found him guilty of murder. The court heard how Minto tried to destroy evidence by setting the body alight, an act the judge called cold-blooded and callous. That same day, Mr. Justice Turner sentenced David Minto to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 35 years before he can apply for parole. Case 20. Carla Dodds was a 27-year-old bar worker from County Durham who turned a night out with friends into one of the most tragic cases Northeast England has seen in years. In the early hours of November 20, 2022, Dodds left a pub in Whitley Bay and climbed into her small Hyundai i10 with 6 passengers, one even squeezed into the boot. They had been drinking, laughing, and playing loud music, but minutes later, that laughter turned into chaos. Dodds lost control of the car on the A191 in North Tyneside, smashing into a lamppost before the vehicle flipped onto its roof. 22-year-old Truman Hub, one of her passengers, was killed instantly. Police who arrived at the scene described it as devastating. Body camera footage later showed Dodds slurring her words and asking officers, "Who's dead?" She was found to be almost twice the legal drink-drive limit. Investigators said her reckless behavior, overloading the car, speeding, and driving while intoxicated, made the crash inevitable. The evidence showed she had chosen to get behind the wheel despite knowing the risks, and her decision cost a young man his life. At Newcastle Crown Court in March 2025, Dodds pleaded guilty to causing death by dangerous driving. The judge sentenced her to 12 years in prison and banned her from driving for 13 years and 9 months. Case 21. Gavin McMillan and Enzo de Jesus Carrasco were once well-known figures in Toronto's nightlife. McMillan co-owned the College Street Bar, a popular spot on one of the city's busiest strips, while Carrasco worked beside him behind the counter. But in 2020, both men's reputations collapsed when they were sentenced to prison for a crime that shocked Canada: a gang sexual assault committed inside their own bar. On the 14th of December 2016, after closing hours, a 24-year-old woman accepted an invitation to stay at the bar with the two men. What began as a friendly night turned into hours of terror. Court evidence later showed that she was drugged and repeatedly assaulted while she was unable to resist or call for help. When she regained consciousness the next morning, she went straight to the police. Toxicology tests confirmed she had been given a stupefying substance, and investigators recovered security camera footage capturing part of the assault inside the closed bar. McMillan and Carrasco were arrested in early 2017 and charged with gang sexual assault and administering a stupefying drug. Their case went before the Ontario Superior Court in 2019. Jurors watched hours of evidence showing the victim's condition and the men's actions that night. In November 2019, both were found guilty on all counts. Justice Michael Dambro called the assault prolonged, coordinated, and degrading, stressing that the pair had taken advantage of a woman who trusted them. On February 12, 2020, the two men were each sentenced to 9 years in prison. The judge said the punishment reflected the seriousness of the crime and its lasting impact on the victim. Case 22. Kayla Richardson was a 26-year-old bartender who worked at Fuzzy's Taco Shop in Lake Worth, Texas. Her job was to serve food and drinks to customers and make sure everyone enjoyed their time responsibly. But one night of poor judgment changed everything for her, for a family, and for the entire community. What began as a normal evening behind the bar ended with a deadly crash and criminal charges that made headlines across Texas. On November 27, 2021, a man named Dylan Molina came into the bar where Richardson was working. Over about 3 hours, she served him 8 double vodka Red Bull drinks. Witnesses later said Molina was clearly drunk. He was stumbling, slurring his words, and could barely stand up. Despite these signs, Richardson kept serving him alcohol. When he finally left, he got into his car instead of calling for a ride home. Minutes later, tragedy struck. Molina ran a red light and crashed into another vehicle. Inside that car was Detective Alex Cervantes, an off-duty officer with the Euless Police Department. He died instantly, and his wife and 2 young children were badly injured. Investigators from the Lake Worth Police Department soon reviewed security footage, receipts, and witness statements. They confirmed that Richardson had continued to serve Molina even though he was visibly drunk. Under Texas law, it is illegal to sell or give alcohol to an intoxicated person. In February 2023, Richardson was formally charged with this crime, a Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to 1 year in jail and a $4,000 fine. Case 23. Andrew Thomas Haler worked as a bartender in Sydney, Australia. People who met him at work saw a man serving drinks and chatting with customers, but behind a computer screen, he was doing something deeply wrong. In June 2024, his name appeared in headlines all across the country after police discovered a disturbing crime involving fake images made on the internet. Haler had used technology to create sexual pictures of women he knew, pictures that were not real, but looked real enough to cause great harm. None of these women had ever agreed to have such images made or shared. According to court documents and media reports, Haler's actions took place between 2020 and 2022. He used computer software to make what are known as deep fakes, fake pictures that combine real faces with other bodies to make the images appear genuine. Investigators found that he made and shared dozens of these explicit fake images, targeting 26 women. Many of the victims were people he knew personally, such as co-workers or acquaintances. He posted the pictures online along with cruel and offensive comments, causing embarrassment and emotional pain to those involved. The Australian Federal Police followed the digital trail left behind by his online activity. When they searched his devices, they uncovered all the evidence they needed. Haler was charged with 28 counts of using a carriage service, like the internet or phone network, to menace, harass, or offend under Australian federal law. On June 21, 2024, the New South Wales District Court sentenced Andrew Thomas Haler to 9 years in prison, with a minimum of 5.5 years before he can apply for parole. If you enjoyed watching this video, I will be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel, and I'd appreciate it if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.